Hey guys, what's up? Morgan Wild here. In today's episode of The Wild Way, my brothers and I wanted to do something a little bit different than our other vlogs. In today's episode, we're going to answer for you the top 10 most frequently asked questions of missionary kids. You can imagine 15 years living off the grid in the remote jungles, the Virgin Islands. My brothers and I were asked a lot of questions because when you live in a whole other cultural context, it's like another world. And so it's hard for people back from our homeland, it's hard for them to relate to that. And so growing up, we used to get a lot of questions from email and from letters. In fact, we still are. And we've seen over the years that these questions follow a certain trend. There's a lot of repetition. And so from all these questions, we've kind of distilled the top 10 down. And in today's episode, we're going to answer those for you. And it should be a lot of fun. So let's get started.
Question number 1. What's your favorite part about growing up in a different culture? My favorite part about growing up in another culture is that it allows me to appreciate and value the differences among different people groups. Because if you only know one culture, then you only have one way of living, one set of priorities, one way of talking, one way of acting, and you don't know any difference. But having grown up in two cultures, you can kind of step aside from each culture and observe it and see what parts do you like and you want to apply to yourselves and what parts you don't like and you want to stay away from. And so, yeah, growing up in two different cultures allows you to get perspective.
Question number 2. What is the most dangerous animal that you encounter in the jungle? I don't know, it's a close call between lions and tigers. They're both pretty vicious and they will both tear you apart, so it's a close call. No, I'm totally joking. Not even close, actually. People have asked us quite a few times about lions and tigers, and as far as we know, there are not even one where we live. Although in Papua we have searched for the Tasmanian tiger. It has tiger in the name, totally different creature, but we haven't found that either. But yeah, probably the most dangerous thing in the jungle was very, very small, and we use this to kill them. And that's the mosquito, the mighty mosquito. They're actually pretty terrifying. They only grow to be about a centimeter long, but if they bite you and they have malaria, then you can also get malaria, and if you don't treat it right, then you can easily die from malaria, and we've had, our friends and stuff like that pass away from that. So definitely the mosquito. That's the most vicious creature out in the jungle.
Question 3. What is the weirdest thing we have ever eaten? And for me, that's kind of a difficult question to answer. I have 2 answers, really. The first is just being honest, but usually people don't want the honest answer because it's not quite as exciting. But to be transparent, the weirdest thing I've ever eaten is the classical, unadulterated American hot dog. Yep, a hot dog. Because it's a mystery meat. I really don't know what it is, and frankly I don't think anybody else does. It's a long, skinny, kind of slimy hunk of meat that's probably not even meat. But over in Indonesia we also have some weird foods. One of the first ones that comes to mind is the echidna brain, which my best friend Pooh considered tasted a lot like oatmeal. Also cicadas, which are kind of like crunchy shrimp in a way. Tree grubs are not so bad if they're cooked. Raw, a little bit squirmy. Eel, just plain slimy. And finally, fruit bats, which are actually pretty sweet and a delicacy. So there are some odd things over in the jungle, but the weirdest thing I've ever eaten is for sure the American hot dog.
Question number 4. What do you miss the most about Indonesia when you're in America? And what do you miss the most about America when you're living in Indonesia? Really, there's just one answer to both of these questions, and that is family. When we moved over to Indonesia, we would go for about 3 to 4 years at a time, and we wouldn't be able to see our grandparents or our cousins who we're really close to. And so that was always the hardest thing, and we'd miss them the most. But since the church was planted in Wano, and the people who we've lived with for years and years came to faith in Christ, then they became like our family as well, and our family in Christ. And so now, as we're living in America, we really miss them as well, and they're like our family on the other side of the world. But at the end of the day, we can only be at one side of the globe at one time. And so we're gonna be missing our family on either side, wherever we're at. But we've learned to be content in Christ and to enjoy our family on whichever side of the globe we're at.
Question 5. Did you guys have pets? This is probably one of the most frequently asked questions. We got this all the time, and the answer to that is a resounding yes. In fact, the jungle was an awesome place to have a lot of pets growing up, and typically missionaries, they're known for having a lot of pets, but the general rule is that those pets don't stay around for too long because typically missionary families, they're always on the move. They're moving from location to location, so a lot of pets are swapped back and forth between people, and they end up in different families' hands. But yeah, growing up, we had a lot of pets. We had a bunch of dogs, cats, different kinds of birds, different shapes and sizes. We had 2 birds that could actually talk. We had snakes. We had fish. We had a common spotted couscous, and also some tree kangaroos. Am I missing anything? So yeah, we had a lot of pets. Now, one of our favorite pets over the years, in fact, probably the most iconic and personable little pet we've ever owned, is this little common spotted couscous named Newt. And Newt, I don't even know why we named her that, because she's nothing like a newt. Common spotted couscous are marsupials, and they're cute, cuddly little bear-like creatures, and they're nocturnal. And so they sleep during the day, and they're up and about at night. But Newt, she was pretty lazy, so she even slept throughout the night. And a cool thing about couscous is that they have a prehensile tail, and they also have a little pouch because they're marsupials, and so they can keep their young in there. And our pet couscous Newt, she was just a doll. We loved her to death, and she did everything with us. She'd eat our food, she'd sleep in our bed, and she just was basically a little companion always around the house. You know, speaking of pets, this one story comes to mind. One time we had this family, an expat family, who was serving with us on the field, and for whatever reason they had to return home permanently. The problem was they were owners of this dog, and they had to leave the dog on the field. And for a while that dog floated around to different families, and finally nobody wanted to take care of it. And so we had an Indonesian friend who stepped up to the plate, and he said, well, I'll take the dog and I'm going to cook it up. And you know what? That's exactly what he did. But you know, cultures vary wherever you go. And what's taboo for us here is not so in other places. And here in America, a dog is a man's best friend. You never think about killing your dog. It's an abomination, right? Think of Old Yeller. But in Indonesia, that's perfectly acceptable. On the flip side, here we're fine with cooking pork and frying up our bacon in the morning. That's great. That's good stuff. But in Indonesia, for a lot of practicing Muslims, pork is an abomination. You never cook pork and eat it. And so different cultures have different ideals, different values, and with the exception of sinful practices, when in Rome, do as the Romans do.
Question number 6. Do you guys walk barefoot? This is one that we get pretty often, usually from people watching our videos, as they'll see us occasionally barefoot or something. But yes, a resounding yes to this question. We try to walk barefoot as much as possible out in the jungle, and mostly just because normal shoes don't keep up. We've tried a lot of different brands over the years, and all of them, within either a couple weeks or a couple months, get pretty busted up. And that's one answer to that. And the second thing is that when you're walking on slippery jungle trails and trying to travel down moss-covered lawns and stuff, you really need your toes and whatnot to grip. And so we just found that nothing works as good as your foot. God made our feet really, really specialized for walking. That's what they're meant to do. So we found that those work better than any other shoe. The only real downside of going barefoot is that you will get injured. You'll bust off a toenail or scrape your foot or something like that. It's kind of unavoidable, but the pros definitely outweigh the cons, and especially after your feet get toughened up a little bit, once you get calloused, then going barefoot is definitely the way to go.
Question number 7. What was the scariest thing that ever happened to me? I get this question a lot because the jungle typically, can be a pretty scary place. And living over there for many years, we endured a lot of scary moments. And probably the scariest times of my life are not worth really retelling because they're a little bit graphic. But I can remember back when I was just a little guy and we were hiking and I got lost on the trail. And that for me was one of the scariest moments. I was at the very front of this big kind of caravan where there's a bunch of us all out hiking, and I really had to use the bathroom. And there was a lot of ladies that were hiking with us, and so I didn't feel comfortable just going right off the trail. So I ran ahead of everyone. And I came to a fork in the trail, and I just kind of looked at each one. I thought, I'm just going to take the right one. This is probably the right direction everyone's going to take. So I ran off way ahead, used the bathroom, and then I lost my way. I couldn't find that trail again because it's such a small little trail, almost like a little animal trail. And in the jungle, man, you can get so disoriented. And so I started calling, waiting. I didn't hear anybody. I'd call again, wait, listen, didn't hear anybody. And after about 10 minutes, I realized, man, I am lost in this jungle. And so that, for me, was probably the scariest moments because I was just a little guy I was way out in the middle of the jungle and we were far from home. And there's no way I was going to be able to get back or find my way back home. But I ended up just kind of visualizing where the other trail would have been, and I just kept on walking through the jungle thinking eventually I'm going to intersect that trail and hopefully find the rest of the group. And the Lord protected me that day, and I actually did find my way back and found the rest of the group, and didn't say anything, act like it was normal, and just kept on walking with the group. But I learned that day, man, you stay with the rest of the group if you don't know the area. Either stay with the rest of the group or know your territory. But that for me was pretty scary.
Question number 8. What did you do for fun? We played a lot with rocks and sticks and rubber bands. There was a lot of fun games you can actually play with just really simple materials, and we would have a blast getting out in the backyard and just looking around us and playing little games. But man, the jungle is just incredibly fun. It's like every boy's dream. And our dad really cultivated in us boys a love for exploration and discovery. And so where we lived, it was farther than any scientist had ever gone. And so there are new species all around us just waiting to be discovered. Under every single leaf, there could be a new species of weevil or something. And so us boys would get together our bug collecting gear and head out into the jungle and collect all sorts of bugs. This was really rewarding work because we actually ended up collecting new species of insects, ones that no one had ever documented or seen before, so it was really fun. One of our favorites was the Spielosema hamsoni. It's a type of moth, and there'd only been 4 collected in the entire world. That was all they had. But over a couple of years, we were able to bump that number up to 16. We also collected the only female specimen of Spielosema hamsoni, and so that was pretty exciting. So overall, there was a lot in the jungle to keep us busy. Question number 9. Did you have any friends out in the jungle?
No. I'm just kidding. No, we had tons of friends. When we first moved into the tribe, I think Morgan was 8, Hudson was 6, Keenan was 4, and I was 2. I think those are roughly the ages we're at. And yeah, we made tons of friends because at that age, kids do what they do best. They just go outside, hang out. We were hanging out with all our tribal buddies and going exploring and playing little games and stuff like that. So just making friends came naturally. And our best friend, we met him early on. His name is Pooh. You've probably heard of him or you've seen him in some of our videos. And he's just an outstanding young man. He's our best friend to this day, more like a brother than a friend, really. And Pooh's story is really neat because he got saved and he's actually now a Bible teacher, believe it or not. And that's kind of a testimony. It goes to show you that you don't have to be really old or have gone to college or seminary to become, a Bible teacher or something like that. He's taking God's word seriously and applying it to his life, and he's teaching other people about God's message of redemption. So that's definitely a challenge for all of us, including myself. So yes, we had a lot of friends, and we continue to keep up with them even though we're half a world away.
Question 10. Can I speak another language? Yokuprak tiduk mbato jak nira pigningarak. Kuparan dira boki boki oya boki babo. Asher, ini kakama ngobe dira kanu kwe diwarak. Tuekui ketik. Yes, I can. Growing up over in Indonesia, it's the largest archipelago and it's full of hundreds and hundreds of different languages. And so when you grow up in a really diverse area, you just pick up the different languages because language and communication is essential. And if you can't speak another language, it just creates an immediate barrier. There's no way you can communicate with those people. So growing up in that kind of context, my brothers and I, we learned different languages. Language learning is a lot of fun, and it's very, very helpful.
All right, guys, so there you have it. The top 10 most frequently asked questions of missionary kids. Hope you enjoyed this video and enjoyed our answers, enjoyed learning a little bit more about us. And patrons, thank you guys for your support. We love you. And if you guys have any more questions, or there's anything you're curious about, feel free to reach out and we will get back to you. And for now, I'll let you go. Talk to you guys soon.
Thanks for watching The Wild Way, and double thanks if you've already liked or subscribed to our YouTube channel. If you want to get more involved with us, visit our Patreon website. Hit the link below to learn how you can become a member of our Patreon team and partner with us. Also, you'll get awesome benefits like exclusive vlog videos, like Wild Brothers merchandise, and a lot more.